Welcome back to News in Focus. Now, Egypt has, along with its role as a mediator through Israeli demands, has asked for Hamas to disarm itself for a potential new ceasefire deal to occur. The Hamas leadership said that they will study the agreement, but they have said that the demands for them to disarm themselves is a crossing of a red line. This comes as the genocide had restarted last month, and the death toll with the current genocide has gone to over 51,000. The question is, will Hamas cede its weapons, or will it remain as the resistance force within that enclave? Joining me now, I'd like to welcome from Ramallah in the occupied West Bank, Palestinian journalist Rafa Musmar. Rafa, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and jazakallah so much for joining us.
Wa alaikum assalam. Thank you for interviewing me.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. Rafa, I think this caught a lot of people by surprise. I don't know if it caught you by surprise. The fact that Israel has made such a demand. It's interesting because this is a group that, obviously, through the Al-Qassam Brigade, they really aren't going to cede their weapons because, as it stands, Gaza is still under occupation, and not just under occupation, it's under this heavy bombardment right now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like the situation, let's say the genocide started again in 18th of March, and around 1,800 person was killed, mostly kids and women in Gaza Strip. And the genocide does not stop at all. The issue of disarming Hamas, that's one of the preconditions that Netanyahu used a lot, beside the fulfillment of his victory by finishing Hamas. So the idea of Hamas become disarmed while still under bombs, I think that's like a ridiculous question or ridiculous request, especially the Israelis. They are bombing everything. They bombed the mosques, they bombed the people where they were gathering at the market, and they bombed the people at the schools, which means like they do not give any kind of easy to Hamas. Even recently, during the last 3 weeks, there was not much from Hamas side. Like, we did not hear daily responses by missiles or even on a military operation on the field, like the land of Gaza itself, while the Israeli soldiers are really existed in Gaza itself now. So this is, I think, it's a pure Egyptian and long-term request. It should be at the end, of course, because the situation in Gaza is it's a struggle movement. Hamas at the end, they are not an army like Israel to say like disarmed. Like at the end, if they have that much of stored guns and weapons, I think they will finish at the end, because the situation wasn't easy from the early beginning of the event itself, from October, and we are really become at the 18th month from this war. So I think this request will be on the table later or sooner.
Here's the thing, Rafa. It's easy for Israel to ask this request. If, let's just say, Hamas grants it, and one has to look at a lot of the prerequisites that have been asked from Hamas when it came to ceasefire deals, they have fulfilled it. Of course, some of them, they have raised it through the mediators of the Qataris and the Egyptians. But if Hamas has to cede its weapons, I mean, one has to look at the Israeli army, the way they've conducted themselves. They can do this again. It's quite possible for an opportunity for them to go ahead and say, well, we're going to go and bomb Gaza, or we're going to do something to Gaza, to really go ahead and tighten the screws when it comes to this occupation. In essence, there isn't really any trust from an Israeli side that they will go ahead and fulfill their part of the deal, and that's ending the occupation in Gaza and allowing there to be aid and so much more humanitarian aspects into that part of Palestine?
Exactly. This is the big question all the time, because Hamas requested from the early beginning of this negotiation that the second stage, let's say, or phase two from this negotiation should be ending the war. And there must be kind of guaranteed parties, let's say, or paper that saying there will not be any bombing from Israel on Gaza anymore. And it was, by the way, more Arab Gulf countries like United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia. They requested that if we will do the infrastructure, we will construct Gaza and rebuild it again, and we will pay that much money, where there should be a guarantee that no more bombing from the Israeli side. So everybody is really wondering that at the end there will be an end for this war. But Netanyahu will connect it directly until his government is finished, like in 2026. So that means he will keep like playing the role of, yes, now there is a truce, no, there is no truce, yes, I want this condition, no, I don't want this condition. This is what Netanyahu is doing. This is why he always suggested days for the truce, not months, for example, not half a year, not a whole year. No, he wants to connect everything with his stability, especially for his right government. So, of course, anytime Netanyahu felt in a way or another he's under threat, especially from the Israeli street or from the people around him, his alliance inside the government itself, of course, he will go and bomb Gaza as much as there is a temporary truce or a temporary agreement.
Rafa, when I last spoke to you in January, and so much has happened with regards to that, of course, we spoke about attacks that are happening in Jenin, and I brought up the question of the Palestinian Authority and its leader, Mahmoud Abbas. He has frequently said that, and this has also come from a Western perspective, that maybe Gaza needs to fall under the authority of the Palestinian Authority, maybe needs to fall under the leadership of the Palestinian Authority. What is happening now, the request that Israel is making for Hamas to disarm themselves, I beg your pardon, this really plays into the hands of Mahmoud Abbas, doesn't it, for the Palestinian Authority to now have control of Gaza. Am I right in saying that?
You know, disarming Hamas, it was one of Mahmoud Abbas, the President Mahmoud Abbas' requests during the negotiation between Fatah and Hamas for the conciliation. And reconciliation was, let's say, imposed in a way or another that if there would be a reconciliation, that means one gun, one weapon, which is the Palestinian Authority forces, security forces. And during that negotiation, which was like in 2022, 2021, they were saying like Hamas as itself, because they were empowered enough to control Gaza. And they were controlling Gaza. So they said, you can have the ground, but underground is ours. In a way or another, the tunnel and all of that is our, where is most of their storages. So it's a big question, not early has been suggested. It's like it's from, let's say, 5 years of negotiation and talking for reconciliation and for having one type of authority inside Gaza. And I'm telling you, Palestinian Authority right now has no changes in its opinion or statements lately. It's saying the same, that Palestinian Authority should rule in Gaza. Even there was like a lot of suggestions by having an Arab troops there. And they tried during the last truce, when there was an Qatari Egyptian soldiers making the people who were in the south of Gaza to return back to north of Gaza Strip, and they were very nice, and I think it worked very well, and they were supervised or they were cooperated, but in a back, let's say in the back scene, by the Americans. And if anybody denies there was no Americans on the ground, our Israeli soldiers during the previous truce, he doesn't look to the whole picture in this case. So there was like four international type of people there: Qatari, Egyptians, American, and Israeli.
Rafa, always a pleasure having you on. Shukran so much for joining us here on News in Focus on Hilaal TV. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you, and I'm very glad to join you again. And wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
That's an absolute pleasure. That's Rafa Musmar, a freelance Palestinian journalist based in Ramallah in the occupied West Bank. After the break, the Road Accident Fund is under the microscope, and its chief executive, Collins Letswalo, has been accused of committing maladministration and fraud within the organization. I'm going to speak to a former Road Accident Fund contractor and risk analyst, Stanley Besaidnote, to break down what is currently happening at the RAF. Do stay tuned.